Alrighty, we're going to take off where we left off. I had put some body filler on some pinholes. I went around the car yesterday and had a little fun. Just not fun. Yeah, I had fun yesterday, just going around. Jolene went to town with her mama, and I just walked around the car and just did some pinholes. You know, didn't stress myself, didn't work hard, just went around and did a few pinholes. But right now, as you can see, if Jolene wants to get a little bit closer, you can see some of the body fill left on the pinholes. I showed them yesterday. This is a pretty good spot right here. Look, you can see how the scratches are in the primer. I had a question that asked me why you couldn't fathom me priming it after 80 grit. And we'll just go through that one. Well, if I have primer on that car that can make 80 grit sand scratches disappear, that means that I would be wasting my time if I went with a finer grit, would it not? If I had a finer grit, I'd be wasting my time if I can get rid of the 80 grit with the primer that I'm using. Does that make sense? And that's the reason why I go to 80 grit, because I know that the primer I am using will make 80 grit scratches disappear. Sometimes 40 if it has to, if you get it on nice. What I'm doing is, like I'm saying, I'm trying to show the quickest way possible. This is the way I do it. You do it the way you want to do it. But if I'm hitting the mud or the body fill with a 40 grit than an 80 grit, you can make sure for one thing that generally that it's straight, because I've got sharp sandpaper. If I start winding it down to 180 and 220, then you start making things wavy. Any body man will tell you, if you got something and you're having a hard time with it, get a sharp piece of paper. Go start from the beginning again. Get a sharp piece of paper and straighten it out, and then go for it. Like what I mean by a sharp piece of paper is a 40 grit or an 80 grit. That's really the only sandpaper that straightens filler to me. The rest of it polishes it, like the 180 and the 220 is polishing. It's polishing your body fill, more or less. To make it straight, it's 40-80. And you start going any beyond that, then you start getting wobbly wobblers in her. You know what I'm trying to say? And as I know when I put the primer on, I put 2.5 gallons in this car, I know that the primer is going to fill the scratches because I've done it before. And I would not go any further on my paper and waste a day or 2 days, 3 days blocking on the car when I know that product can do it. So when I go to the product over here, it's a feather fill. And I was laying in bed thinking last night, I am doing the exact same thing that you would do in the old days. And I'll tell you why. Because when I spray it with lacquer primer, I'm not using lacquer, this has hair. You sprayed lacquer primer, and then you would spot putty it after you lacquer primed it. You know, this is what I'm doing. I am putting a primer on it that has a plastic polyester, so more or less what the body fill has. When I put this on, the hardener makes it go harden. So taking place of the lacquer primer, where it shrunk and showed your work, this has a hardener in it, and it's not, it's less shrinkage, in which I agree it is, because it works, and that's the new technology. It does not. Makes like a shell on it. It does not shrink, and it will fill 40 and sometimes 80 and sometimes 40 scratches. It will do it. And as I put the body fill on top of that, it sticks. And this has a hardener in it. So I'm putting on product that's not shrinking, is what I'm doing, and taking place of the lacquer and the lacquer putty. So I'm doing the exact same thing as they used to do, but I'm doing it with materials that has hardeners in it. I just want to show you real quick. I don't want to show you real quick. I'm just going to show you. As I, there's different types of bodywork too. If you're in a repair shop and you're doing dents, like you want to get it out of there and fast as quick as possible. And I understand the putty method on that. If you're doing small dents, I understand that, because you want it done. You don't want to do it 2 or 3 times. You know what I'm saying? But if you're building a custom car, you're mudding something, you want it to look good. You're building a car for yourself. You're building a car for somebody else. I'm just trying to go through the processes and do as less work as I have to get it done. So if we want to come over here, this is just a guide coat. I'm going to throw this on, it's just a guide coat. You can use base, you can use a spray balm, but just try to make sure you use a spray balm that says on it that it dries fast. You don't want something that goes on there and doesn't dry. Terrible. So what I have done nothing but put body fill on this, sand it with 40-80. I've primed it, and then I've took the body fill and spot puttied, or did all the little pinholes that I see that I have. As we get looking on the top of the fender here, you see the top fender, can you see all the scratches in the primer and stuff? And that looked like that right after I primed it. Did not care, because I know when I block it off, it'll be fine. So I'm just going to put a little guide coat on this. Should start that over there. Always start somewhere else before you start right on the car. So I'm going to guide coat this. And this is a guide coat. And if I would have put this on before I did the pinholes, I would not have seen the pinholes. That's the problem. I've already done that, and that's why I'm telling you to do the pinholes first, because you don't see them. After you body coat, you don't see them. They're hard to see. So we'll just go along here like this. I could have done a lot more yesterday. I didn't. And as people, I think people realize, I am building this car for YouTube. I am not working on it generally when the camera's not up, because Jolene wants to see the process. You know what I mean? There's a process I can do now that, is not going to need to be filmed all the time, and that's this one. But I didn't really want to get into blocking the car right down to a fine right yet. But where I'm able to, I may as well. I got other people coming, and I didn't want to go too far. As I got that on there, we'll just do a little bit here. You can come look at the scratches here. Come look at the scratches there. See them? Okay. I'm just going to put a little guide coat on them. Now, if you want to block your car down with 220, you must understand that I'm twice as fast as you, because I've stopped at 80. You have to remember that, because I'm into primer, and you're still blocking with 220. And I know how long it takes to block a car out. Does that make sense? Makes sense to me. Also, 40 and the 80 grit are generally the only sandpaper grits that I find that straighten auto body filler. That's the only two grits that will straighten it. Any other grits than that, they do not do a good job at it. They do not do a good job. And the reason I know, because I've tried it. Also, so we'll just let that dry for a little bit, just a little bit. I can keep going over here probably until it ends. There's more stuff to do here. I got all this sanded here. The purpose of guide coat, and we will show you that as we get going. The purpose of guide coat. Jolene's going to start asking me questions because she knows what's going on, because she's doing the film work and all that stuff. She sees some of the questions. I don't see all the questions. I see some of them. But she'll be asking me questions sometimes that people want to know. And please bear with us, because we're just trying to do the best we can do. So she is going to be my producer. She's going to ask me questions, and I will answer. The purpose of the guide coat is to show any scratches, any pinholes, any imperfections that may be in your bodywork. And if someone does not guide coat, I don't know, it's like having sex without a condom. You could miss something, or you could catch something. That simple. But this is much, I don't know what to say. This is something that you must do if you want to do a good job. I mean, it's something that you have to do. And I do it with every car because I know, I've done it before, I've missed stuff, thinking that you know. It's almost like welding up a gas tank and not pressure testing it. Exact same thing. Exact same thing. You have, if you're building a gas tank and you do not pressure test it for holes, you are looking for an issue. You're flirting with a mess up. How's that? And that's just guide coat right there, right simple. haven't got much left. Like I said, you do not have to buy guide coat. You can mix a little bit of base up with some thinner or reducer, whatever, and you can just sprinkle it on. It can be red, it can be blue, it can be green, it can be whatever color you choose. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to go with this pretty quick. On this primer, where I sanded the body fill, and it's on the primer, I've roughed it up with an 80 grit because that's what I sanded the mud with an 80 grit. I wanted to sand the mud, not the primer. Where I've come around it, I have roughed it up a little bit. And that's where the 220 will work the best, because where it's roughed up a little bit with the 80. Where the primer is still got the hard shell, and I have not touched it yet, it's going to be very hard for the primer or the sandpaper to dig into that primer. Look at that now, would you? You can see the scratches there. And what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do for you. I don't have 220. I'm going to just have to go get some sandpaper for a second. Great day! It's a great day. What have I got left here? I got a couple 220s and some 400s. Not going to even get into 400. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to wrestle around and try to get that really in paint on the outside yet, because there's a lot of messing around to get inside and outside. I'm just sort of straighten it out as I go. So there'll be another mess of primer go on this car before it's painted for sure and blocked one more time to make sure it looks like what we want it to look like. Now I can show you how good that is. Like I can take an 80 grit on that primer, and I will take all them scratches out. Then I can hit it with a 220 and polish it off a little bit. I don't know what I should do. I probably should show you the 220. I'm going to put 220 on this because that's what I'm telling you to do. That's what I'm telling you to do. So after we get the pinholes, I've got the pinholes over there. So it's guide coat. You just watch me guide coat. Now I'm going to put 220 on it. 220. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do it real quick. I use a DA wherever I can. I use a DA wherever I can. And the reason I use a DA wherever I can is because I don't like that flat spot in that one. We got another one there. You pulled it out, did you not? Another one in there? I like to use a DA. I go with the electric DAs. I go with electric ones. I like the electric ones because the power they have. There's no, slowing down. You got a bunch of mud that you want to sand off. There's no compressor banging in the back of the background or anything like that. No. And what I used to do as a person that would, trying to get into this, I would go to people's houses and do their bodywork right there, and I'd take my old feather edger right with me. You know what I'm saying? That's what I used to do quite a bit. Go to people's houses. I'd paint cars at people's houses. I would go in their garage and do their work. I did what I had to do to get work. But anyways, I've done a lot of cars like that. So anyways, what I'm going to do here, I got a piece of 220 over here. I didn't put on my DA yet. And that doesn't stand for drug addict. That stands for dual action. Dual action sander. So that what I mean by dual action, it goes around and back and forth. So I'm just going to take and put this on here. You can see the scratches. It might fill the paper up quite quick because how damp the guide coat is, but you can see the scratches and all that stuff. And look, you can see the 80 there. You can see all the scratches here. Now let's try this here. I'm going to run this DA just the same way as I'd run a block. I'm going to crisscross it, and I'm going to pay attention to the guide coat. here a second. Give me a little more time so I can brag. And what I mean by brag is tell the truth. Now, come look at this. Why would I waste 2 days sanding with something else, with a finer grit, when I can do 40-80 and do that? Why? You must agree. You have to agree. Why would I spend that time sanding the whole car with putty, 220, 180? You can't keep up with me if you do that. You can't keep up with me. 40, 80, and I'm on to, if I guide coated it again with the guide coat, the spray balm, if I guide coat it again, right? And then I went over and got a 400 and put on it. I'm ready to paint. You know, if I'm using urethane, I'm ready to paint. You're still blocking with 220, if you know what I'm trying to tell you. So that is the reason why 40-80 is the, you know, come look at this stuff. I mean, you can see it in here, how rough it is. You know, it's orange peely, I guess you would call that. And that's just texture, but let's put a little pressure on it. You can see, so to me, I am winning doing it this way. That's how I feel. I feel like I'm winning when I do not go to the finer grits and block it all the way around. I feel like I'm winning when I do not putty the whole car and go all the way around. I've saved. You can ask let's ask ourselves, how long would it take to putty the whole car? How long would it take somebody to putty the whole car with a block? Ask yourself. Then ask yourself, how long would it take to take it all the way to 220 before you get it in primer? How long would it take you to block all your mud down with 220 before you put primer? How long? Ask yourself. 1 day, 2 days, or could you do it? Could you sand the whole car down in a week? You have to ask yourself. As I'm putting primer on it, the primer that I'm using is a new primer. I mean, let's face it, I'm using the product that works for me. This is the product. It has a hardener in it. It's 40-80 prime. Once I prime it, I have a very nice shell on the whole thing. I have one surface to play with. The pinholes reveal themselves very well, and the ones that get covered over with primer, awesome. They're supposed to. That's what it's for. And the ones that don't, I put body fill on. So I don't know what to say. I've just shown and proven that there's no need for any finer grit on body fill than 40 and 80, unless you're doing it a different way. And if you're doing a different way and getting a great job, awesome. But you must understand that I will beat you every time. Every time. And that's the way it rolls, you know. We got some scratches down here on the front fender here. I can take a piece of 220 and show you real quick. Also, I'm not into a big bunch of sandpapers that you get confused with or whatever. I've got a couple pieces of sandpaper that I use, 4 pieces of sandpaper that I use every time. It's a 40-80 and it's a prime. And then when I get to the primer, it's 220 and 400. And if you want to go to something, a base clear, well then you're just going to have to step up a little finer grit again. But you can see scratches right here on the front fender. They're quite heavy. They're really heavy actually. See how the guide coat shows where the scratches are? And it will show if you pay attention, it'll show the most minute thing that you would never believe. And also, it's just like the primer. As I've primed this car, I've said I put 2.5 gallons on it. If I do not put the product on the car, I cannot do that, if you know what I'm trying to say. If I'm going to come in and put half a gallon on it and try to skimp on product and take more time. And the price of the product outweighs the time that it takes to do it. It does. It outweighs, you know. The body fill alone, you know, for $20 a can, a can of spot putty's twice that, or 3 times that. Why would I want to mix that all over top of the car when I don't have to use it? You know, why would I mix that on top of the car when I don't have to use it? Crisscross that a little bit, get it cutting good. I'm just trying to get that one big scratch right there. But I'm going to go down here and take a little bit off everything. So, and that's the thing, you know, you want all the surface to come together as one. That's what we want. And also, you will know with the guide coat, you will know when your car is ready to paint, because there'll be no guide coat left. There'll be no guide coat anywhere, because there's a guide coat, that means there's something wrong. And if you do not see any auto body filler or any metal or anything, you got it. You know you've got it if you're blocking it or straightening it out, because you're at one surface. If there's no guide coat, you have to listen to me now. If there's no guide coat and no metal or body fill showing, and we didn't break through the primer anywhere, we know we got it. It's just as simple as that. And you can take that to the bank. Yeah, I just got that. Why would I ever waste my time sanding mud with 220? Why would I waste my time? That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And that just proves it. Like, there's no need for it if you're using, and that is probably one of the cheaper products you can buy. This is a $125, $150 a can. I'm not sure, but it's one of the cheaper products you can buy. And if I can put two of those, 2.5 on those, that would cost you, we'll say $300. So if you put $300 on the car, you could not block that car out for $300. Can't do it. Can't do it. No, 220 and keep going over with putty. No, you can't do it. So you're better off, 4080 prime. 4080 prime, man. For this sort of work, I mean, let's face it, I'm not doing collision work. Collision work's totally different than what I'm doing. I wouldn't know. I'd be like a fish out of water doing collision work. I'd probably bust every clip going. I haven't done it. Don't do it. I enjoy the art of the car, and that's exactly what's going on. Exactly what's going on. I enjoy the art of the car. And Jolene can help me do this. We can do this together and talk and have fun. And I can chase her around the car and try to catch her. You know what I'm trying to say? But anyways, that's how it rolls. Let's do a little bit more down here with the DA. And I will sand this car anywheres with the DA. I will sand the whole thing. Does not bother me a bit. I've actually mudded the whole car with the DA, so why would I not sand the polyester or the primer with the DA? As I come down here, I'm just feeling it over, taking a looky poo-poo. We'll just go like this. Watch. The way to work that DA, the way to work the DA is to work it just like a block, crisscross, and go back and forth, hold it flat as possible. Try to start it on the car and stop it on the car. Try. Sometimes I don't, but it's the best thing, because you get that thing spinning and you jam it on the car. You might have to putty something, you know what I'm saying? So start it on the car and stop it on the car. that is not metal. That is guide coat showing me that there's primer on that edge of that door. So that's primer, it's guide coat on primer. So that's not metal, not even close. No, I know, when you get run the DA, it's always, you want to tip it to get to something, but don't do it, just keep holding it flat, and I'm just holding that flat, and you can see what kind of surface that we're going to have, and you can see the sand scratches in the guide coat, and all the whatever. And as you look at that, you can tell that I did it with a DA, because you can see all the circles, right? You see long straight marks, well, you probably blocked it, but you can tell, you can see that I did all that with the DA, and I usually do. I will take a board file on some things if I want to straighten it out, and if I do, I use 40 or an 80 grit. 220 doesn't straighten anything in my opinion. You might straighten paint with it, about it. You might straighten paint, but you're not. I think the mud needs a 40 and 80, and that's about it. If you want me to keep going, keep going for a little bit. I'll just pull this door off, see how this door looks like. Now, what I'm looking for on this door, this is what I'm looking for. That. Absolutely perfect. That's what I'm looking for. Nice and flat, no nothing. Okay, another piece of paper. Do I get any piece of paper there, or did I fold it up? Me neither. I just want to take a look. I folded it up, I did. Damn it. Anyways, I haven't got any more, but this is fine. I'll just keep going with this. I'll just keep going. I have a little spot. You can tell what that door looked like before we started. It looked like that, 40, 80. And I've got a little tiny spot right here. Kind of probably might need something. And a little tiny spot right there. That's how good that guide coat is. This is just the edge of the door where the primer has gathered, and just like paint, it gathers around the edge. We'll sand that down, get it flat again, and we'll do the exact same thing process down here. Wherever I've sanded on it before, I'll do the DA, and I'll do it that way on the whole car. And everybody's going to say, "I want to see that car." Well, you might. You never know. But I'm just saying that's how I do it with the DA. And there's another thing. If you're still on your block and your board file, you have not tried to become the master of the DA and do all your fill with it, you will not beat me either. Because I've taken the time and I use that thing like I use a block, and I apply it that way. And I sand it off that way. And I use it like a block. If you do not, you must admit, you do not have to, if that's flat, as long as I do not tip it, I'm not going to get anything crooked. If I have a guide coat, it will tell you. It'll tell you if you've got a sand scratch. So when I'm using the DA, I feel good about things because I'm holding it flat. I'm not distorting anything. I'm not tipping anything. Let's face it, if I started tipping here and tipping there and doing all that sort of stuff, well, I'd have a mess. Yeah, I most certainly would. I'd have a mess. I'm going to let the dog in. But anyways, that's how I do it. You can do it your way, or you can try that way if you like. It don't matter to me. But that's what we do videos for, to try to help people or their own help people, especially people on their own projects. You know, this really, like this here, if you're doing your own project, you get your own car primed out. You know, if you're not using the DA every day, the feather edger or whatever you want to call it, if you're not using that every day, I don't suggest it. But if you want to try it, use it like a block and not tip it. You can get the exact same. You can do the exact same thing that I do. Like most of the mud on this car, I did it with the 8-inch orbital. Do one of those. And if I do the whole thing and hold that flat, well then it must be flat. And if I come down here and do this area with it, if I use it just like a board file, why wouldn't it not be as flat as the board file is doing down there, you know? Also, it becomes another thing. From your metal work to your body work, everything has to get a little bit better each time. And that's what I like to do. I like everything that I'm doing to do its job. I like the fiberglass to do its job. I don't want to get into it and grind it off. No, I don't. I just want to put a little bit on, get over the weld. You know, I don't want to get into that process of sanding and trying to grind it off to make it look right. Don't want to do that. So I put it on thin. The mud, I try to flood the whole area so I know that I have one surface. And you know, just as well as I do, once you start having that land or that ocean floor start popping out, what I mean by the ocean floor is the metal and other stuff from that stuff starts popping out. It's not flooded anymore. It's just, what can I say? It is what it is. I like to flood things out and go to the metal, and then that's it. That's what I like to do. When I get to do that, I get to make it one surface. There's no ifs, ands, buts. So really what's going on is I'm letting the mud do its trick. I'm letting it go down as far as it has to, and I'm only using a 40 grit because I do not want to take that time out of my day or the week, because the primer that I use does the job. The primer that I use. So I know that, so I do not go any further on the mud. I know the primer does the job. The guide coat or the body fill does the pinholes. Then I guide coat it to find out if I need something straightened out. When I find something I need straightened out or fixed, I'll go back to the body fill and go over top of this primer because it works really well. And I know that because I've just done my pinholes. Yeah, that's basically what's going on. I'm going to have to order some 220. Baby's going to take me out for breakfast. I love you, baby. Is that enough? 35? We can go a little bit further if we want to. I can put. Look, let's do this. So we're on this part right here. What is it going to do? It's going to take... Yeah, we'll do it on the door. It's easier to see. We'll take a little guide coat. Let it settle for a second. Take a little guide coat, and then we'll throw 400 on it. So, yeah, we'll throw 400 on it, and then we'll go from there. And you'll still see things in the 220. You'll still see things. I did not use the 220 to straighten anything. Did not using it straight. Oh, yeah, I guess I did. I used it to flatten off the primer, but I didn't use it really to straighten anything. I think the panel was straight to begin with. And it's really, it is easier to straighten something out if you flood it. It really is. And the quicker you get onto it, good for my knees or not. So this is 400. I'm just going to take the guide coat off again and see what happens. Still got the same pick. Still got the same pick, because the guide coat still picked it up. If you know what I'm trying to tell you, still got the little tiny mark there. You would see that in a paint job. That has to be fixed. Has to be fixed. Now, as I swipe that off, that panel, other than that pick there and that little pick there, that's ready to paint. Urethane. Exactly. Make sure I say it right, baby. That is ready to paint for urethane. Now, I do that all the time. It's, 40, 80, prime it, putty, or pinholes, and then 220, guide coat it, 400, guide coat it, and I'm ready to paint. There will be places to fix in this car. I still have places to body fill on the inside yet. There's a lot of work to go on the inside yet. I still got to throw some primer on places before I put some joint seam sealer in all the seams. I got to caulk that yet. And that's basically it for now. I'm just going to plug away. I got a little more putty. Let's go on the other side, show them the other side. I just walked around it and puttied it yesterday and sanded some off, obviously, and you can see what's going on. I still haven't done that fender skirt. It's just hanging there, I just kind of, whatever, just hanging there. I haven't played with it yet. The putty, it's not putty, this is filler. And I'll do the exact same thing, just come in and knock it off real quick. Some I'll even knock off with a DA, Let's face it. That's basically what I'm doing, running around and getting picks. I'm not stressing myself out at all, but we're just having a good time doing it. Like and share and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. If you gain anything from this, like, share, and subscribe. Okay. You heard it from the boss. Oh, yeah, they can't hear you because I have a mic on. Sorry. We might be going to Jeff's on Thursday. Jeff's is the wood guy. He has his own page. We'll have to get the page, and we'll get you guys to follow that, too, if you like. We're going to go check it out. Jolie has got her gauges. We'll probably have some holes drilled in the wood, maybe. Is that what we're doing? Okay, so some holes drilled in the wood. I think he's doing more on the wood on the door. Yeah, it's quite exciting, really, you know. We actually, Hub and Liz were in yesterday. That's what we should do today for sure. Jolene is thinking about the special kind of material that she's going to put inside the car, and our friends right across the road have some. Hard to believe, I know, it's hard to believe. But we're going to drive over and check it out and see if Jolene likes it or not. And then we might get on to, get some interior done. We have no idea who we're going to get to do that yet. We have no idea. We still have to get foam for all that stuff. I still have to block the car out. And this is the step that I have to do to the whole car and make sure there is none of those. There has to be none of those. If you're going to do a good job or you want a nice job, that's what you're going for. And for me, I like getting there as quick as possible, and I am showing you how I do it. All right, man. I think that everybody should like and share and subscribe. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I would never lie to you not knowing. It is an interference engine. Huh? I would make sure that if I put anybody in the wrong direction, I would make sure that I let them know right away that I've made a mistake. That's the kind of guy I am, and I continue on to go that way. All right? Have a good one, everybody, but I'm showing you the quickest way possible.